What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Corporate Death of Macabre on the phone.
It's awesome to have you here. The newest album is Carnival of Killers, scheduled to come out later this year. It's been a while since we got a new album, so do you just consider this a direct continuation of Grim Scary Tales, or maybe the Slaughter Thy Poser compilation, or is this like a new start for Macabre in a way?
Slaughter Thy Poser, that was like a song off one of our EPs I think we did. No, this new album is just a progression of Macabre. You know, at one point I was thinking about just doing like a Grim Scary Tales Part 2, and you know, that album was all chronological. I started from like some of the earliest recorded serial killers on that one to early 1900s or something like that in there, or mid 1900s or something like that. I don't even remember the dates, but I did chronological, so I was going to take off from that point and do a part 2, but then I decided not to do that, and I went with the Carnival of Killers idea, where we sang about half the album is about new killers we never sang about before, and the other half of the album I went back on old killers that we sang about already on past albums, the real popular ones that everyone kind of knows. And you know, at one point we did a concept album about Jeffrey Dahmer called Dahmer. It's like a musical.
Yeah.
And on this album, I figured, okay, I don't want to do like a whole album on another guy anymore like that. You know, that was kind of a one-time deal. So I figured this was my way around it, was to, like, I could do multiple songs about the same guy, but just do it on different albums and, you know, tell different parts of his story in a new song. Like I did a new Gacy song on this one, new Richard Speck song, a new Richard Ramirez song, a new Ted Bundy song, new Ed Gein songs, actually 2 of them on this album. One will be a bonus track, so you probably maybe didn't even hear that one. New Albert Fish song. So, this is kind of my way around doing a concept album again like that. So, just a new idea I thought of, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you think of these killers or these individuals, like, obviously it determines the lyrics and it determines the concept, but would you say that depending on who you're singing about, that could also maybe have an influence on the direction of the music itself?
Sure it could. Sometimes I take it like first person, like the killer singing the song, but most of the time the way I write is kind of like a newspaper article, like telling the story about these guys, and pretty much I cut these guys down. If anything, I don't say they're good. I don't condone these guys what they did or anything. It's pretty much just telling the story. This is like, you know, the evil side of history, and it's kind of a warning to people, if anything, like, watch out, there's a lot of crazy guys out there, and here's some examples of it. I call it creative storytelling.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the music is very informative. It really does, like, I mean, some people have said that you guys are like a hardcore death metal true crime documentary.
Mm-hmm. I don't know about death metal. I mean, we do death metal in our music. I would more call it like murder music, if anything. We call it murder metal, but we throw a lot of metal in there. But I think as long as I'm singing about these killers, I can go any direction I want to go. Of course, I'm not going to do like a rap song about a killer or anything like that, but you know, I think I can go any direction I want to go. Country sounds, or different vocal sounds, as long as I'm singing about these killers in there. There's really no rules in music. It's art, and there's no rules like you got to do it this way or whatever. So on this album, I really tried to push the variety on the music styles, and I really focused on the vocals on this album, which I did all the vocals on this album myself. And the bass player lives in a different state, so he had to come out to my house and learn the songs after I finished writing the album. And I really didn't have time to work with him on the vocals. So he's like, you just do all the vocals to it. I go, cool, because I like to sing. I've sang since I was a little kid, since I can remember, along with the radio. And I grew up in the 60s and 70s and stuff. So I used to sing along with top 40 stuff on the radio and stuff. And I always loved to sing. At one point, I studied a little bit of opera. And I'm pretty much self-taught, though. I learned how to do harmonies and, stuff like from listening to the Beatles and stuff like that. At one point, I was at the karaoke, probably about 10, 15 years ago, where I was like totally into karaoke. And I would get a microphone at my house and sing along with all kinds of records of old hit songs. Everything from Johnny Cash, Elvis, Beatles. And I try to sound just like the guy on the album. And I go do it at karaoke at a bar or whatever. And I had like 100 songs I could do. So I really tried to showcase my vocals on this new album and kind of show what I could do on the vocals,
Yeah, from listening to this album so far, it almost seems like I was able to see sides of Macabre that I haven't seen before. And maybe, this could just me being, a listener of you guys, but like I feel like, when you look at the Murder Metal album or the Dahmer album or even going way back to Gloom, it almost seems like there is, like, when you look at the earlier stuff to the more newer stuff, there is like a constant evolution that it's demonstrated in the sound.
I think, we're not like... I'm happy to just say, okay, we're just going to sound this way, like one style, and just this is our style. I think, like I said, we can go any direction we want to go as long as we're singing about these killers. And I like doing variety. To tell you the truth, it's like I would get bored, like just saying, okay, we're just going to be brutal all the time, and I'm going to scream my brains out all the time. I would get bored doing that, and I just have more fun doing variety. And I try to do vocal styles and melodies that I think stick in people's head, that they can hum while they're working in their head. Something that's memorable where, you can remember the songs pretty easy and the melodies and stuff. And some of it's a little simple, like melodies and stuff, but catchy, And this is just like pretty much, it probably came from my childhood and stuff, growing up with Beatles albums, and my mom used to buy all kinds of, old albums from the 60s and 70s and stuff, and listening to the radio. And, I always just like to do variety in music. It's just more fun that way for me.
Yeah, does it ever happen with like a preconceived idea, or is there like a lot of trial and error in a way, like happy accidents, as I like to call it?
I pretty much just write the stuff in my head, I guess I got a gift of doing that where I can just come up with a melody in my head and then just go to my guitar and figure it out pretty easy. Sometimes I'll come up with like a lyrical part, like some vocals and a melody in my head, and then just go figure it out. So, I've always kind of been able to do that. And, I do want to progress with Macabre and, try to even add more textures to our music in the future and, more music and vocal styles in there. Maybe really, like add some more classical aspects to our music and stuff. I've always been big into classical music. Bach is like my favorite. I love the old classical masters and stuff like that. So I'd like to add more of a classical aspect to it too in the future.
Do you like Frédéric Chopin at all? That's my favorite classical composer.
Yeah, I love that. I love Chopin, Beethoven, Paganini, Mozart, but Bach is the grandfather of it all. He's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, if you really look at it, classical music and heavy metal are pretty much identical. Like, there's no denying, like, classical music back in the day, sure, there wasn't crowd killing, but, like, you see the intensity and the darkness and the emotion that they channel into it. It's very much the same as what you heard in every aggressive form of music that's out there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of technical bands out there today that maybe I wouldn't consider it like classical, but it's getting pretty technical these days for sure. And of course, the classical stuff is the most technical shit you could ever imagine, man. It's hard to play, and these guys were virtuosos. These guys who wrote this stuff.
Yeah.
And I play a little classical guitar too. I love to play classical guitar too.
It's that's an instrument and a sound that I feel like is timeless. No matter what era you're listening into, or if you can't think of something to listen to, classical guitar is just always like the best thing to resort to just simply listen to and be impressed and laid back and enjoy.
For sure. I mean, if I had to pick one music to listen to, I had one style to pick for the rest of my life, and that's all I get. I would pick classical for sure.
You got great taste.
Even though it doesn't have, I'm not so much into the opera stuff. I did study a little bit of opera for a little bit, and I tried to do a little bit of operatic vocals on the new album on parts of it too, but I'm more into the classical stuff without the vocal stuff. The opera gets a little weird for me sometimes.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to, like having these lyrics and, having these subject matters of killers that you sing about, I mean, like, obviously there's a lot of research that goes involved in it, but do you sometimes write about maybe like your own personal conclusions or maybe your own personal viewpoints on it? Is there any personal representation of your life incorporated in the lyrics as well?
I try to be real factual on everything, but I do, I had some of my own ideas in there for sure, like the Lake of Fire, or like, Timothy McVeigh I did on the new album, where I'm like saying, okay, this guy's in hell now. You can't say it's factual. You don't know, but I'm like, I had my own ideas in there for sure sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that guy killed hundreds of kids. I mean, if there's a hell, he's fucking burning in it as we speak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. It's funny, like, do you almost, like, watch, like, do you get inspired by, like, certain forms of media? Like, do you always resort to something, or do you tend to, like, how do you, like, conduct the research in really figuring this out?
It all started with books. I have piles and piles of books. I used to do all my research from books, and I had notepads, and I would read about these guys, and it took a lot of time. I would have to really go through it and figure out what I wanted to use from the research. Now that with the technology, with smartphones, I don't even read books anymore. I just go straight to my smartphone and punch in some key phrases, and so I don't have to waste as much time digging through books. I got it right at my fingertips. I mean, this is something I wish I would have had many years ago. I'd be way smarter than I am now if I had a smartphone when I was a kid or something. I used to have to carry change around in my pocket to use a payphone if I needed to make a call and I wasn't at home or something. So, kids don't know how good they have it today with these smartphones and for information and knowledge and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, with technology these days, it's very helpful to me with my research, and I don't have to spend as much time.
Yeah.
But I'll look someone up, and I always have notepads with me, like laying nearby me, so I can jot an idea down so I don't forget it. Like if I come up with a melody and some lyrics, I'll write the lyrics down right away. So if it's the next day, I'll forget it or something. So, I've always done the notepad thing, and I still do that to this day.
Which is awesome, because, like, also what I wanted to know is, and this is something I'm really, really interested in hearing about, because, since Grim Scary Tales and this one, there's been a lot of crazy shit that's happened in the world, both politically and subconsciously and spiritually and stuff like that. I mean, was there any modern day issues or modern day, not politically, but like, was there any modern day stuff maybe it's, fairly recent that could also be incorporated in Carnival of Killers as well?
I don't know what you mean. I mean, that stuff is pretty much true crime. It's all about serial killers, and it's all factual. All my lyrics, there's nothing imaginary in there. Like, something where you got to really listen to the lyrics to figure out what I'm saying. It's pretty straightforward, and I use a lot of rhymes in there and stuff, kind of like a Dr. Seuss book or something like that. And I'm totally into rhyming, but no, it's pretty much factual. I just try to do it in a creative way. I tell the story. That's about it.
Yeah, you don't really offer. I mean, you don't offer too much of your own perception on it, but like it's very analytical.
I just try to tell the story and be creative the way I do it, and lyrically and musically, everything. I just try to be creative with it. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Now, going by the name of Corporate Death, I mean, having all the members have their, own sort of like aliases that they go by, do you almost feel like you, in a way, portray a character in Macabre?
Yeah, we kind of got the idea from, like Texas Chainsaw Massacres or something like that, like the backwoods kind of, hillbilly kind of thing with, that kind of image. The names we just, we've seen other bands do that in the past, like Venom or some other bands and stuff where we just kind of did it for a fun thing back then. I was a manager of the Rock and Roll McDonald's, which was I was general manager there for 8 years. I had 4 diplomas from McDonald's, and there was a song by MDC, a punk band. It was called Corporate Death Burger, and it was about McDonald's and cutting McDonald's down and stuff. So I just said, since I'm a manager of McDonald's and this song was kind of funny, I'll just call myself Corporate Death, And if you ever check out the song Corporate Death Burger, that's where I got the name Corporate Death from.
That's a really interesting backstory, and I think that that's actually really awesome. You should open up your own fast food chain to compete with McDonald's and call it Corporate Death.
Yeah, I love to cook. I really do. I cook all the time. So, but no, I think I'm going to stick with the music.
Well, if you ever open up a restaurant, let me know, please.
Yeah, I would probably do a barbecue kind of thing, smoked foods. I love to do the grilling kind of thing. I have 4 grills. I smoke all the time, ribs, whatever,
Yeah, well,
I'm really into that.
What you should do is look up certain serial killers' last meals before executing and make that the special.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea for sure.
Yeah, I know that.
I think Gacy had he owned some KFCs at one point, and I think that was his last meal he requested was Kentucky Fried Chicken. Yeah,
a bucket of fried chicken and deep fried shrimp and a pound of strawberries. That was his last meal.
Yep.
And kind of going back to the last question I was asking, I felt we didn't touch upon it enough, but because I was wondering if maybe more modern day murder cases were ever influenced on Carnival of Killers in a way.
There's not really too many modern. I mean, how modern are you talking about?
Well, I mean
Timothy.
Timothy McVeigh was 99. I mean, there's been a lot of fucked up murder stories. If you want a fucked up murderer to look up Dan Wozniak. That one gave me nightmares. The murder of Cassie Jo Stoddart was terrible. That happened in 2006. And so I always thought that maybe it's been a long time since the last Macabre album, that maybe there would be more modern stories incorporated in there as well.
No, I didn't really. I don't research these guys much anymore, and only if I'm going to write, I do, I'm not a kind of serial killer buff where I'm that's all I do is watch documentaries and read about these guys all the time. I'm just not really into that, but at one point I did a lot of research on this stuff, but I have notebooks full of songs and lyrics that I've written in the past and ideas, so I have a long backlog of old past killers. I try to pick the ones that are popular because there's so many. And, I did a few obscure ones on the new album that people have probably never heard about, like Joe Ball or Leonardo Cianciulli, the tea cake song, where she killed people and made them into tea cake soap. And so I try to pick the crazy ones, of course, cannibal killers and stuff like that. We've done songs on shooting spree killers in the past, but I don't focus on anything like that. It gets a little boring and redundant. There's so many of those, and so I try to pick the cannibal killers and stuff. And the last real super popular one that everyone knows is Jeffrey Dahmer, which I did a whole album on him, a whole musical, chronological from his childhood to when he gets killed in jail. So I try to pick the ones that are real popular and people would know, even in different countries. People know who Dahmer is, and Casey and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do. Has Jim Jones ever been a character?
Oh
Or?
yeah, I did start writing a song about him. I did. He's in one of my notebooks somewhere. But like if I'm going to gear up to do say another album, I'm going to go through my notebooks and see. Okay, I had maybe Jim Jones would be a good one, or the Sonny Bean family. I started writing a song about them, and people might not know who Sonny Bean is and stuff, but that's a crazy story if you research that one. So I have, probably hundreds of song ideas and partial songs written and stuff. So I would just go back through all my old notepads and maybe pick a few new ones, like modern ones, but nothing has really stood out to me in the past, 10 years or 15 years or anything like that, where I'm like, oh, I got to do a song about this guy or something like that, so.
Yeah, it's not like you watch the news and all of a sudden, like, oh, I got to write a song about this.
Right.
Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is being that you guys originated in Chicago, which has a very, very rich musical history with bands, of all styles, whether it's Ministry or the Smashing Pumpkins or even later bands such as Disturbed, was there kind of like a scene that Macabre was affiliated with your sound? Was there kind of like a hardcore or grindcore scene that you guys were associated with in Chicago?
Well, we've done a lot of shows in Chicago, and we've always had a pretty good fan base in Chicago. In the past, I think we were a little more hardcore sounding, like on our Gloom album. But I still throw that some hardcore stuff in there, but no, we kind of just been our own thing, kind of our own sound. I always went for. We didn't really try to say we're in this scene or anything like that. We're Macabre. That's it,
I think that's a great way of putting it. We're not a hardcore band. We're not a death metal band. We're not a grindcore band. We're just Macabre. Yep. Or actually, because we talked about this in the beginning, though, what were some of the other pronunciations you've got, depending on the countries you played?
Well, the French pronunciation is Macabre. I've heard Macabre, Macabre, Macabre. I've heard several different pronunciations, so those are the ones that really stood out to me.
I mean, maybe because there's also a couple
and Macabre. That's the other one. Macabre.
Because if you look, there are a couple of bands that have the same exact spelling as you guys, but part of me wonders if they are pronouncing it differently.
There is. There's another Macabre. I didn't know.
Yeah, I think there's one from Washington. I believe there's one from New Jersey, but
we were probably before them, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think
we started in '85, so
yeah,
they should look us up and say, hey, we can't use this name anymore. It's already been done.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to have the same name as the band that's already established.
Yeah, well, there was one from the '70s, but they broke up after a year. I just had to pull up the archives to check it out.
Well, I'd never heard of another Macabre. I haven't. I've researched it, so maybe you found something I didn't know about, but I didn't copy it from anybody. I got the name from the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In the beginning of the movie, they have a little intro, and it kind of tells a little story, and it says the macabre experience that these people went through that day, and it's right at the beginning of the movie, and that kind of stuck with me at some point. And I'm like, wow. So we were going through different band names and calling ourselves different things, and at one point I go, we should call our band Macabre, and these guys are like, yeah, that's a good name, and that's how it all started.
Oh, okay, I'm doing a fact check now. I think that this was Pentagram's original name.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Pentagram used to be called Macabre from 1971 to 1972. I just looked it up.
Wow, I didn't know.
Yep, but
I've heard of Pentagram before, but I didn't know they called themselves Macabre. But
learn something new every day.
We trademarked the name back in the 80s, so.
Yep. So if they released anything under that name, you own it.
I don't know.
But before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed being able to talk with you about this, all this new stuff. Just obviously, thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named, I know live shows aren't happening anytime soon. But is there a chance that maybe you could bring Macabre out on the road when all this is settled down and we can finally have shows again?
Well, that's the plan. I hopefully by next spring or something, the shows start happening again. I don't see it happening. It takes a while to set a tour up. It's not just like, oh yeah, we can start doing shows now, so let's go on tour next month or something like that. You have to promote it. It takes months and shit. So I think hopefully next spring we can start doing it. We had festivals planned for this summer in Europe before all this stuff went down, and they just postponed them till next summer, the European festivals. So hopefully that all happens. But I want to do a headline tour where we have a couple other bands go on tour with us, and where I can do a long show and play a lot of this new material. And of course, people are going to want to hear some of the old stuff too. So it'll have to be kind of a long show where I can fit it all in. And it's kind of hard to do that unless you're doing a headline spot. As an opening band, I can only do so much. If you get a half hour, 45 minutes to play, I can't, play everything I would like to play. So hopefully this all starts happening pretty soon, like, early next year, sometime in the spring,
Yep, definitely. And hope we could see you here in New York City. But
I hope to come back there.
Definitely, we would love to have you. But thank you so much, everybody. We are here with
All right.
We are here with Corporate Death of Macabre. Be sure to pick up Carnival of Killers coming out later this year via Nuclear Blast. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.